Testing. Testing. There we go. All right. What's up, guys? We're going to give it a minute for everybody to roll in. Hey, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. Don't worry. Just going to give it a second for everybody. Let me post on Instagram too. Dang, and as soon as I open up Instagram, this is getting crazy, man. And I lived in Louisville, Kentucky for a while, so I knew they were cracking down, but I feel like next year is going to be different. I don't know. Stuff has just been insane lately. That's why I've been telling people, just park your car, man. It's not worth it. Just park your car. Let's chill. We had a good season, but there's too much going on. All right, I'm going to share this post and then we'll talk about it. Hold on. There we go. All right. So appreciate you guys hopping on. Thank you, man. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I mean, a lot of people ask me how I know what I know, and I've told them most of it is trial and error, screwing up my builds in the past. Like, I didn't learn most of what I talk about in school. I was interested in it, but that's not what we learn in school. So, and I know a lot of people that dropped out of engineering just because it didn't apply to what they wanted to learn, you know? It's good for like background knowledge, but it won't teach you like tuning and stuff. But it is what it is. Yeah. So let's go ahead and talk about it, man. So hopefully you guys saw the recent post, and remind me, I need to look up like streaming software so we can like watch stuff together or talk about stuff together, because I want to be able to share my screen and we can watch videos and talk about what's going on. But for those of you that haven't seen, Mikey wrecked his car. So this is Mike body. That's the tennis ball. And this was at a track. It was not street racing. You know, he doesn't street race. But basically, he got to the end of the track, broke the G80 record, And then for some reason, the car wouldn't stop. They said like it felt like the accelerator was pinned open, and it ran off the end of the track and ended up flipping and landing in a ditch. So that's their video showing what happened. But it's just been crazy lately, right? Like everybody's crashing, everybody's having issues. Obviously, Andre, he had that huge crash, wrecked his car, unfortunately didn't make it through. And this one, it was Body tuning the car, but as you know, Body doesn't drive his cars. It was Jazz, the same guy that drives a bunch of like the other A90s and stuff. He drives a bunch of the top 10 cars. People build them, and then they have him drive the car for them to see what it's capable of. So he knows how to drive. He's been faster than this, but for whatever reason, the car had an issue and it ended up running off the track. And we keep seeing other people like Merrick over at M Performance or M Powerhouse. His car caught on fire, so he had an issue. And then their other friend up in New York, I don't keep up with him a lot, but I know he goes by like Reef, and he just got a G80. His G80 got wrecked. I don't know if he was racing or what happened, but he got that car like a month and a half ago. And then he just posted up a picture. The entire rear end is like gone. And this isn't people that's like, oh, I got an fender bender. Like I posted my video, like, oh, this guy scratched my quarter panel, right? No, these are people that are like flipping their cars, totaling their cars, getting the kind of damage that can make it like salvage title. Like either you declare it to insurance and get a check to buy a new car, or you repair it without telling anybody, that kind of stuff. And so it's just like, I don't know, man. You guys let me know what you think. I know the safety talk is good. We're going to talk about that too, all the safety equipment, but it's just been crazy that this stuff is happening lately. And even here, like locally to me, I've got friends that have gotten arrested, cars impounded, like stuff that's never really been happening around here. At least the people that I know, not as common as it is like this year. It's just been way worse this year than any other year. So I don't know. I'm done for sure. Like outside of logging and doing my own testing, like I'm not lining up with anybody anymore this year. I'm not going out. It's getting cold anyway, so it's kind of like not worth it. But it just makes you wonder, like, what's going on? Why is this all happening back to back? It seems like every 1 or 2 weeks, somebody pretty prominent in the community loses it. And it sucks. I know it sucks. But I don't know. So we're going to talk about this first point, Judah. Private rentals still need to require safety equipment. That's a real thing, man. And we were talking about that. I'm in like too many group chats at this point, but we were talking about it in one of them about how some of these guys will do private track rentals so that they can basically do what they want. And a lot of it, of course, is you can prep it yourself. You can get as many runs in as you want. You can do as much testing as you want. You're not worried about, regular test and tune where you got a hot lap or do whatever for like a certain amount of time. And track rentals cost a lot of money. So it's fair, like if you're going to pay all this money to have the whole track to yourself, they're not going to be hovering over you like it's a sanctioned racing event or something. But that is one of the things that people can get by with. Not saying that they do that specifically to get away with it, but they're not going to be as critical with you about safety equipment. So when people are like, oh, how are these cars going so fast and they don't have a roll cage or a parachute or whatever, a lot of places just don't care. Like there will be a certain scenario where they will, especially if the car looks shady. Like if you've got a jacked up Honda or something like that, it seems like a lot of times it's a lot more scrutinized versus like a modern G80, a modern BMW. People will just assume it's fine, right? They won't be as critical about it. So I think that's a part of the problem. People are getting private track rentals, getting away with doing what they want, and they have a modern car that, the people that own the track just assume it's safe. You don't have to worry about it. It's not like a 90s car where it'll just crumple. But that is real. That most of these people do not have the safety equipment that's required for how fast they're going. Even if you do, it's still not a foolproof thing. You know what I mean? But yeah, that for sure is something, because Body As far as I'm aware, I don't think he had a roll cage. I don't think he had a parachute. He might have been like getting stuff fitted, but it looked like this week he was posting that the car was down in Florida, I guess to take advantage of some warmer weather so that he could actually get some times down. And he could just got it like PPF'd and all that stuff. He was posting pictures of like all the carbon bits he put on the car. And then not even 24 hours later, it was upside down in a ditch. So that sucks. BMW guys put safety last and records first. I think that's fair, but it's also not something that we talk about. And the other thing the guys were mentioning is it's like, it's so easy. Turbo, fuel pump, port injection, whatever. And you're making a car that can do 130, 140 in a quarter mile. Do a trans, now you're doing 150, 160. Build your engine, now you're doing 170, 180. You know, and I mean, at this point, it's not even like you got to figure it out. It's just money. How much money do you want to spend? Spend your money, get somebody to build it, and you'll have a fast car. It's that easy. And if you're buying a $100,000 G80, like it puts you in a good position. You're not like a lot of us that were tuning $10,000, $20,000 cars 10 years ago, right? Like a lot more people in this community have a lot more money. And that money just goes way farther than it used to. So I don't know. I don't have a roll cage in my car. For reference, I'll say that I don't have a roll cage. I don't have seats. When I do my track days, all I do is wear a helmet, basically. You know, it is what it is. That's just the requirements for the bodies that I track with. And when I've done quarter miles, it's been the same thing. Just wear a helmet. So, but I've never been that fast. Like I've never been required to have a roll cage or anything. So I don't know. Like, let me know. When would you feel like your car is fast enough that you need a roll cage? Don't look at the rules or anything. Just think personally, at what point do you feel like you need a roll cage? Because I think it's more than a certain amount of power. Like everything with our cars, it's about how you drive your car. It's about what you're doing with your car and how much risk you're taking, right? A roll cage is supposed to help you if the car rolls over. So at what point do you think that that is inherently a risk? Because let's be real, a lot of people, they build these cars, they make 600, 700, 800 horsepower, and then they do one pull every once in a while. Or they do a pull getting up to highway speeds. Why does that mean that you need a bunch of extra safety equipment? Right? Versus the guy that stock turbo, port injection, moon tune, creeping into the nines. And he's doing it every weekend. He's doing it on the road. He's running slicks on the road, you know what I mean, to make sure that he can hook and stuff, or running radials. In that position, I could see it being more important. But it's hard to really put like a number on that, like a certain amount of power or a certain quarter mile time or something. I think we do that just to like regulate it, but it's more about just how safe do you want to be. It's regardless of how much power you're making, it's how you're driving your car. So I don't know. That's my opinion though. You guys let me know what you think. And the rules are a lot easier on newer cars. Yep. I mean, the reason why our cars are so heavy is because it has so much additional safety equipment, right? Like Body said, their car blew the airbag. I mean, you can see it in the video. So it's not like it was literally just the sheet metal, right? It's had the side curtain airbags, still had the airbag in the steering wheel and the dashboard, like underneath on the passenger side. So there's a lot of stuff to protect you in there. It's really when you start cutting that out that you need to start reevaluating what you're going to put in its place. I think that's a fair point too. Like if you've still got all the safety equipment in your car, seat belts, airbags, you know, all of that stuff is still intact and active, sometimes that can interfere with your roll cage, or your roll cage can interfere with its operation. But yeah, I think this is just another reality check because this wasn't on the street. Everybody can't complain, oh, he's street racing or anything. This was at a track. Like it can still happen. Thankfully he didn't hit anything, but he could have. He was in the bushes. Like, as much as I was saying on the track, you don't have to worry about trees and poles and stuff. That's what happens when you run off the track. So it just makes you wonder, like, what can you even do? How can you plan for that other than do everything? And I do want to make another video on safety overall too, but I just figured I'd hop on here. We can talk about it since this just kind of popped off. I see a lot of comments and stuff. See, the owner said safety equipment could make it worse. So I've heard that a lot too. And I'll share my thoughts because there are a lot of times where safety equipment can make it worse. It's not statistically going to make it worse. Like, most commonly in a bad scenario, it will make it better, but that does not mean that there aren't situations where it can't make it worse. And in this specific case, he's not saying a roll cage would have been dangerous, like would have hurt him. From what I read, he was saying the car caught on fire and they're not sure he would have been able to get out if there was a roll cage because he crawled out of the trunk of the car. So let's just be like, fully understanding that there. He's not saying that roll cages aren't safe. He's not saying don't do a roll cage. Like, he's not trying to say anything in that aspect. He's saying in this specific scenario, if a roll cage was in the car, Jazz could have been stuck in the car while it was on fire and might not have made it out. And that is very real. That can happen. If your car is upside down, the roof is caved in, the doors won't open, but you can't get out of the trunk because there's a jungle gym behind you, you're stuck. You have to wait for emergency services to come and pull you out. Now, what happens in that time? Especially when you're not on the track, you're off the track, beyond the track, like almost outside of the property, like off in the bushes somewhere. So, I mean, it's real, man. I don't think that is to tell people don't do safety equipment, but it could be true that he's looking at it and saying with the car on fire and with Jazz stuck in the car, he could have been more seriously hurt. He could have had smoke inhalation. He could have passed out. Could have had a lot of other things happen from the car being on fire and being stuck in the cabin. So, is what it is. Let's see, no parachute. I think that's a good point too. I don't know when a parachute is required, but a parachute, I think, is also not a perfect safety net. It's definitely something that you should be using if your car is fast to slow down, especially if you use smaller brakes and stuff like that. I think that's where a lot of people got more critical because these guys running really small wheels have to swap to smaller brakes like the Vargas brakes and stuff like that. And I definitely think in that case, you've got a 3,500, 4,000 pound car. You probably should add a parachute or something to help you stop. But I don't know what he would have done in this case. Again, it's just kind of one of those things you try to look at it retroactively, and there's so many things that would have worked in a perfect scenario, but it wasn't a perfect scenario, right? Like, if you hit the parachute at the end of every pass, sure, but they weren't using it. So what do you think if they had the parachute, they would have used it? I don't know. Just my thoughts, because I see a bunch of these guys. I mean, all the 7-second Supras, like, they have parachutes, and plenty of them don't pull them at the end of their runs. So you're thinking, okay, this guy got to the end of the track, hit the brakes, realized it wasn't stopping. Then they said he tried to turn off the car, like he pushed the start stop button, and the car didn't shut off, or like it just kept running, and it was like the pedal was pinned. So then at that point, he has to think to go and pull the parachute, or would he pull the parachute first? Somebody else was telling me, oh, he should have just shifted into neutral. But it's like, if you've got 3 seconds to figure out what the best option is, like, what do you do? I don't know. Again, not saying it's not a good idea, but I just don't know what would have worked in this scenario. Sometimes bad stuff just happens. And at the end of the day, something messed up in the car. Like, it doesn't make sense that it just kept running after the end of the quarter mile. If he came off the pedal and the car kept going, I saw some other like tuners and stuff trying to speculate like what could have happened, because our cars have electronic throttles. So it's not like a mechanical throttle body where the cable got stuck or something and it's holding the throttle open. Most of the time our throttle body's open anyway, since we use Valvetronic on our engines, right? So could it have been like the port injection still spraying or something else? I don't know. It's hard to say. Under 11 seconds needs a cage. That's going to be pretty much everybody, man. Full bolt on in a tune, you're in the tens. Capable of tens, let me clarify there. Not everybody's running tens, but let's see, a roll cage on a street car wouldn't make sense, but on the track or drag strip for sure. I think that's fair, right? Like I said, it's more about how you drive your car and what you're using your car for. So if it's a dedicated race car, like a lot of these cars are, I think it becomes a more realistic option. But as a community and everybody just saying that a certain amount of power needs a roll cage, a certain speed needs this and that, and you guys are driving your cars to work during the week, like, it's not realistic, right? So then I think it becomes less of a question of how fast is your car, but it's like, does it make sense to street drive a car that you're building for racing? Or do you just make a dedicated race car and have a daily driver? Which is what I started doing, right? Like on my last car, when I went full send with it, I did the roll cage and the seats and the harnesses and everything. And I street drove it sometimes, but it wasn't like a street car. It sucked to drive. I knew it wasn't safe, especially with the harnesses and stuff, just driving around town. So I just didn't drive it. I only really drove it at the track, to and from the track, and to maybe like a couple car shows. But there's a lot of us that like, we take our seats and all of this stuff out for Friday and Saturday night, and then we put everything back in the car so that we can drive it to work Monday morning. And I mean, it's about how you're using your car, I think, more than how fast it is, for sure. Let's see, some cars I'd be scared to cage, like a 911. Dude, what? Bro. So I forget who I was talking to about that as well. Like, if it's harder to install the cage, I think the cage is more limiting, right? If you've got like a four-door car, like a G80 or an F30 or something, and you can get into all the corners and you can weld it up and make everything good, I trust that more than a lot of these coupes that we're racing. And that's just me again personally, because like you said, everything's already cramped. And when you're in there with a roll cage, I don't know if you guys have sat in a car that actually has a roll cage. It's extremely uncomfortable. If you're in a race car that has all of the safety stuff, it's uncomfortable. You can't move. You can barely turn your head. You can barely see outside the mirrors and stuff like that. And it's very it's very safe for its purpose if you're just driving straight or driving in a controlled environment. But in other scenarios, it's just like, I don't know, man. And I guess that's the perspective I'm coming from. Like, it doesn't seem to me like a roll cage is the fix for all this stuff, because the way that people are driving their cars and the kind of cars they have, it just makes it a little sketchy. Let's see, if you have a car set for world records, it should have a cage. I think that's fair. Like I said, if you know it's a dedicated race car and you're only building it for racing, like a lot of these guys, for sure. BMW traction sucks. I disagree there. I think a lot of modern BMWs have good traction. I think a lot of us drivers probably think that we're better drivers than we are, but the car itself has good stability. The traction control is really good. And even when traction control is off, it's pretty easy to control. But what can happen is, when you try to reduce camber and adjust your alignment and stuff for straight line racing, it can hurt that. But I mean, it's kind of up to you to know the limits of the car, right? So yeah, I mean that's why when I go to the track, I don't do DSC off. When I'm doing logs and highway pulls, I don't do DSC off. I keep traction control on because you just never know. I don't need to win that bad, like to get an extra 0.1, 0.2 seconds or whatever off my draggy time. I do not care. And people will say like, "Oh, your draggy slow. You should have did this. You should have did that." I don't care. I'm okay with how my car is doing. I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time. I'm not out to break records, right? If it was, a money race or something, like I'm getting paid to do this, then I'll entertain that kind of stuff. But for somebody that's just enjoying their car, like, oh, I lost a race because I didn't turn off traction control, I can sleep at night with that. Maybe it's just me. You know what I mean? But it was like this guy that we were out at Streetcar Takeover, and he came out and did some runs with us. And when we got back, I mean, it took him a while to get back. Like, it took probably like 15 minutes, and we were wondering what happened to him. And so somebody was trying to call him, but he wasn't picking up the phone, I guess because he was still driving. And then when he gets back to us, he's like, God, you guys are fast. Like, I really didn't expect you guys to be that fast. And he's in like a stock S550 Mustang or something. And we were like, yeah, we thought you'd at least keep up or like chase or something. And he was like, no, like after the first pull, you guys were gone. Like I couldn't catch up. And so everybody's telling him what he needs to do to his car. Oh, do an intake, do a supercharger, do this and that. And he's like, absolutely not. Because when I leave here and I'm driving by myself, I'm going to floor it. And this is still going to feel like the fastest car in the world. This is only a problem when I'm sitting next to you guys. But 99% of the time, how I drive my car, it's the most fun I've ever had. I have no need to go for 800 horsepower or whatever. And I think that's real. That's how I drive my cars too. If I'm enjoying it and having fun, it's reliable, consistent, all that. That's all I need. So I don't know. I feel like I keep saying I don't know, but I really don't. This stuff is just crazy how it just keeps happening, and I don't know how to stop it other than like just saying chill out. That's what I think. I think we chill out. And I know we're coming up on a time where a lot of big races come up because Thanksgiving weekend around here is the big weekend, like usually Thanksgiving night. Some of the guys from like the East Coast and stuff, they were talking to me about that too. I think you guys have big races on New Year's night, I think. And all like the fastest cars come out and you guys got your spot and you get racing in until like 5 a.m. or whatever. I'm chilling, man. I don't know. I don't trust it. I don't know what's going on, but I don't want to be a part of it. Let's see, power cutoff switch from inside would have helped. Yeah, but that's not really something I hear about a lot. Like I know people were like, oh, they should have fire suppression and all this stuff. I mean, again, shoulda, woulda, coulda, like, yeah, that might have helped. But that's not really something that most people put on a street car or something that they're just racing. Not on the cars that I see anyway. Maybe I'm missing that one. But I mean, it's like a factory DME. Like this isn't some aftermarket ECU with an aftermarket wiring harness and all these integrations and stuff. He doesn't have like a switch panel to control everything, right? He flashes a tune just like we do, turns it on and floors it down the drag strip. So I don't know. It's something that I guess could have helped if that was the problem. But we don't really know what the problem was because, again, saying the throttle was pinned doesn't make sense. Yeah, and if he had, so somebody else was like, what if his floor mat was holding the pedal flat? And that's something that I got a slap on the wrist for at my last track day because I had my floor mats in the car and I forgot to take them out. But it's like, do you guys take out your floor mats every time you're racing? Because that's a safety hazard. If your floor mat gets stuck under the pedal and doesn't allow it to move properly, like that's a real thing. Most places make you take your floor mats out. So it's just stuff. It's like, yeah, okay, you could have did this, you could have did that. But I'll admit, even myself, I'm a part of the problem with a lot of that stuff because I don't think about it. Definitely not for my car when I'm driving my car and racing and stuff. At the end of the day, there's risks out there that you can't control. The only way that you can try to avoid it is not participating at all, and I don't think that's fair entirely. But I'm saying for 2024, I'm chilling. Yeah, stability control. I think we were talking about that earlier. I don't mind turning off traction control, but yeah, maybe I should have clarified. Stability control, I like to leave on. So I'll put it in Sport Plus or traction mode or whatever, and the car can spin a little bit, but it won't let you like get crazy. It won't just kick out. Like I mean, it might kick out a little bit, but it'll keep you straight. Driving hard without contingencies for error is dumb. So let's talk about that then. How do you do that? Because if I go to the track, I'm making sure I'm at 8/10ths, right? That's my goal. I'm not going to drive 10/10ths. I'm not going to feel like I'm pushing the car and sliding around and stuff. If I feel that, I'm pulling back. But how do you do that, like in a drag race, for example? I don't know. If you say like you don't want to push your car to the limit at a drag strip, there's no way to do that without taking away the room for error, especially when you're on a tire that has limited functionality in general. It has to be hot, it has to be sticky, it has to be on, a good surface and stuff. Like if you run over somebody's coolant or oil or something, like you're done. And you can't create a contingency for that if you're racing like drag racing. I don't know how you set that up. So I understand what you're saying, but I don't know if that's something that I would put on the driver for drag racing or from the tuner or whatever, especially if you're chasing records. Or maybe did you mean street driving? Maybe that's what you meant. Because yeah, I agree. On the street, I'm not gonna throw it all out there. Let's see. I'll comment on the cage one more time, just in case you guys didn't hear it earlier. So when Mike Body said that a cage could have killed him, I don't think he said that it would have. Maybe I read that wrong. I can even read the post again. But the way that he was explaining it was because of the circumstances of the crash, right? So he basically said that the car caught on fire, and if the cage was there, Jazz might not have been able to get out of the car. So he could have been stuck in the car while the car was on fire because the way he got out of the car was climbing through the back and popping the trunk and coming out through the trunk. Let me see, where's the spot that he said it? All right, so here's what the post says. Let's make sure we're all seeing the same thing. He hit the sand trap at 202 miles an hour. The car continued, hit a tree, flipped, burst into flames, and then slid through a field before hitting the final tree in a ditch. The airbags saved him, and the entire interior was intact, thank God. In this one particular case, an interior kill switch would have saved us. A parachute would have helped marginally at best, and a cage, oh, he did say it, a cage would probably have killed him. Hell, airbags and seatbelt beat him half to death. So, yeah, I guess in his perspective, it would have made it where he couldn't have gotten out. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's stuff like that. Like you hear about people getting stuck in streetcars that catch on fire because the seatbelt won't come off, and you've got to like cut it off of them and stuff. So it's something that can happen. I don't know because they didn't get that on video. I don't know the circumstances. When they posted the car, it didn't look like it was on fire, but you saw like a patch of grass behind it that was burnt up and like all black. So I guess in that case, it's like if a car is on fire and you are trapped in the car and you can't get out, the doors won't open or whatever, yeah, that could be a recipe for problems. So you're kind of relying on the emergency services to get to you fast enough, cut the door open or break the glass or whatever, get your harness off and get you out of the car. I mean, did you guys see Dre's video when he crashed his 240? He had to do the same thing and his car wasn't on fire. But you can see him. He takes off his harness. He tries to open his door. He couldn't get it out. Then he tries to open the other door. He couldn't get it out. Then he started trying to go to the back. Then he was grabbing a knife, trying to like cut open or cut off the airbags and stuff. It's like if you're trapped in the car that's been screwed up so the doors and stuff won't open properly, that's a sketchy situation to be in. And if the car is on fire, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So I don't know. From the pictures, it didn't look like the car was all burnt up, but I mean, it was upside down. It was messed up. Let me see if I can try to. Yeah, I can't do this. Like I said, I saw some of you guys post streaming services. I'll try to get that set up next time so I can actually share video and stuff and we can look at it together. But if you go to his Instagram or whatever, you can see the video of the car and stuff. Downpipe an email and you're in the 9s with an S58. Yep. And I can say myself, I significantly underestimated those cars because I called somebody a liar when they told me how fast their car with just a tune. Like I was like, absolutely no way. And then I looked it up and realized how easy it was to make those cars fast. I had no idea. But those cars, like, it's a completely different ball game. Yeah, they're heavier. Yeah, they're harder to work on and stuff like that. But if you want a simple setup, like you said, downpipes and tune, a little ethanol, that's a ridiculous amount of power for a car that you spent probably $1,000 on, an extra $1,000, $1,500. I think the answer is to stick to 8th mile. You know what? That's a point. And somebody mentioned that in another race too, because for example, even Top Fuel and stuff, like they shorten the track when the cars start getting faster, right? And if you're focusing on the short track, do you care so much about the back end of the quarter? Like if you're trying to make your car faster and faster, is 8th mile racing really that hard of a dig, other than it doesn't get as much respect or whatever, right? Where I lived in Louisville, we had an 8th mile track and everybody hated it. Everybody was begging for a quarter-mile track. But I mean, these guys were doing 120, 130 in the 8th and some of these Fox bodies and stuff. It's like, that's fast. And then what? You gain an extra, I don't know, 20 mile an hour or something in the back half. Like most of your quarter mile is going to be in the first 8th, really. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's realistic. If you come to the track and you don't have all the safety needed to do the quarter, you should stick to 8th. That's fair. So, sorry guys, and I know I'm probably way back behind on messages, but I'm seeing this talk about plaids and stuff. Electric cars are going to be completely different, right? Electric motors are going to be different than using your brakes to slow down individual wheels and stuff. So that's going to be different. It's like saying an LSD does better at traction control than, using your traction control. Like, yeah, it's actually managing power. So that's going to be different. Let me see. Oh gosh, I'm way behind. Hold on. Yeah, your car's doing 9.5. Definitely possible, man. And I know a lot of people with tuned cars that don't want to speed. So again, you can get the power, you can daily drive it, and it's no different. You just like doing quick 0 to 60 hits or whatever. That is what it is. But if you're going to be racing and beating on you, you want to be prepared for the worst, I would say. Welcome, man. I tried to let you guys know. Today was really last minute, but I think the topic at hand, people want to talk about it. So I decided this morning. I saw the news last night, I guess before they posted it. Um, and then when they posted it, of course, this morning or whatever, midnight or something, everybody was talking about it. So I figured why not hop on. The Black Friday video will come out on Tuesday. So for me, I try to wait because some people don't announce their sales. Like you still hear people announcing sales now. Um, I'm still going to post it a little bit early because some people don't announce their sales until like Thursday or whatever. But we'll do it like we've done in the past years. So if there are any sales that come on late, I'll just post it in the comments. And if you guys check it on Thursday or Friday, you'll see an updated list on the video. But I don't want to post it too early and not cover as much as possible in the video. I don't get how oil gets on the wheels if there are wheel liners covering the wheels. So it's not getting on the wheels, it's getting on the ground and then the wheels drive over it, especially your back wheels that can kick out. So if oil dumps under the car and then you drive over it, you're going to lose traction. And I had somebody so mad on the last video I talked about, Dre, because he said that I was talking about street legal, like what's street legal for racing? Why am I worried about street legal if we're doing illegal activities? And I think that just shows that you guys don't understand why, not you guys, but why some people don't understand why some things aren't street legal, right? Like it's the same thing with tires. If you hit a patch of oil on a street tire, like on an actual 300 something tread wear tire, it's not going to be as catastrophic as running over it on a radial. And the radial is going to be stickier in the dry, but that's why most of these tires aren't really street legal or aren't designed to be street driven, because when the worst case happens, it's a lot more catastrophic, right? Your car will spin out, you'll get in an accident, it can get damaged itself. Like if it gets punctured or something, it can be more catastrophic. I've even seen cars blow up their tires on the dyno. Like some of these cars or some of these tires aren't designed to be like just driven fast. It's designed to go from A to B and then stopped, you know? So it's just something you got to consider, man. Like, again, there's a risk no matter what, but with stuff like this, it increases your risk. So that's up to you as an adult to figure out what you need to do to keep yourself safe. How fast do you have to go to need an engine diaper? So, you know what? TX2K posted their updated requirements, and it includes two things. Let me see if I can pull this up. But it's actually a requirement to have one at TX2K now. So let's see, I'm just going to read through this. So you've got to have an SA 215 or 2020 car helmet, no motorcycle helmets. You must have closed-toe shoes, long pants, and long-sleeve shirts. So basically, if you don't have a race suit, pretend that you do. If your car is trapping 140 plus, you need fire-rated gloves and a fire-rated jacket. If you're doing 160 plus, you also need fire-rated pants and fire-rated shoes. So at that point, you do need a race suit. And then if you're at 185 plus, you need a Hans and you need, is that like a harness, I guess? And then also if you're trapping over 185 and have brakes smaller in diameter than came with the car, you need a parachute. So this is TX2K. Everybody that's coming there is going to have to meet these requirements, right, based on their trap speed. Now, drag racing classes. These are rules for all classes. So every car, just to race, all right? The first one is turbo cross bolts. So vehicle with stock location turbos and full length exhaust exiting the factory location are strongly encouraged to have cross bolts. But if you have an aftermarket turbo or added turbos, you have to have cross bolts. So what that means is basically at the back of the turbo, there needs to be this metal X brace so that it basically protects it in case the turbo blows up. So that way you're not throwing stuff all over the track. You also need an engine pan or an engine diaper on all cars. So it's not a certain speed or a certain ET. All cars that race at TXTK have to have either an engine pan or a diaper. And it must cover full engine coverage and have at least a 2-inch lip with a liquid absorbent pad at the bottom of the pan. No coolant is allowed. That's always been a requirement, but nobody cares. But they're reiterating it. I don't know if they'll check, but no coolant allowed, only water, no water wetter. Basically, the only thing that you can use is water. And the reason is because, again, if you have a coolant leak or something and it dumps coolant on the ground, coolant is slick. Water, it'll just evaporate. So no coolant allowed. These are things that they're requiring for all cars. So it's just it depends on who's controlling the racing organization, like that's controlling the racing event and stuff like that. But that's going to be big because that's in a couple months, right? Are you guys all ready to modify your downpipes or your turbos and stuff so that you have cross braces to capture your turbine wheel in case it explodes? Is that going to affect your tune? Do you have to get it retuned now that you deleted your cat, but now you've got a big cross brace in the middle of the exhaust housing? So that's the way things are going. And I highly recommend, if you're planning on doing any event, do exactly what I did. Go to the website, look up the rules, make sure you're ready. Because some check, some don't. But if they are checking, you don't want to get turned away because they're probably not going to give you a refund. And I'm guessing it's only going to get more and more critical. Like, people are going to have more scrutiny over the requirements and making sure that you meet them. So we'll see. I just thought I'd throw that out there because I saw somebody talking about it also. Yeah, hopefully. Hate to say it like that, but yeah, hopefully it doesn't increase insurance prices because all these cars are not getting, like I said, these aren't little bumper to bumper, scratches and scuffs and stuff like I had this year. These cars are getting totaled. Let me see. Did you guys see Reef's car? He's the guy with that 2J E90 335. Let's see. I can't even remember. I'd have to look it up. But he had posted it like a couple days ago. And he was just like, for everybody that's wondering what happened to the G80, and it was completely destroyed. Yeah, I'll find it later. Appreciate the support, man. Yeah, cold weather tires grip less, but they were down in North Carolina. Sorry, South Carolina. Yeah, so they went down south. I mean, a lot of these guys live up north on the East Coast or whatever, but they will fly their car or drive their cars, trailer their cars, whatever, down south so that they can, get better conditions when it's this cold. So that's what they did. Am I doing anything in TX2K? No, I'm not sure I would even go. I'm definitely not. If I did, I wouldn't race. I don't have anything to race. I do need to go at some point, but it's a pretty big trip for me. I'm really far away. See, opinion on the best setup for a daily M440 to make 550 to 600 on 93. Um, I mean, pretty much. I don't want to say any turbo upgrade can get you there, but you've got a low comp motor, so you can definitely make more power on pump gas. It depends on your fuel quality, really. But I would probably go for like the 67, 69. That'll give you the best opportunity to make good power on pump gas. And then just kind of see where you land. Try not to get too hung up on the numbers, especially on pump. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Like I said, I haven't really been racing. I went out probably 3 times this year. I missed the actual streetcar takeover, which sucked, but I was having issues with my car. So, that was really probably the only actual sanctioned race event that I was planning on going to. And then other than the track days and stuff, yeah, all of that is relatively safe. The guys that I run with uh, run a tight shop, so they don't really have people being crazy out there. But yeah, I'm chilling for the rest of the year. Won't see me posting any racing videos. You probably won't see me outside barely, even if you're local. Let's see. Did I miss anything else up here? I feel like I lost some questions. Sorry about that, guys. If I missed your question, you can ask again. I tried to scroll through and I feel like I'm missing stuff. Let's see. How much power can the stock clutch hold? I would say the clutch for sure, in my opinion, needs to be replaced if you plan on tuning your car. And I haven't had any issues with my car because I replaced my clutch before I did a downpipe, before I did a high pressure fuel pump. And even now on the big turbo setup, it's holding the power pretty well. We limit torque, but it's holding it pretty well with just the 550i clutch. So that's usually what I recommend to people. If you plan on tuning your car, just upgrade to the 550i clutch and then you should be good. Because it seems like even the stock turbo, when it's pushing a good amount of torque, it can overwhelm it. Let's see. Oh, well, you need to upgrade any of the parts for a pump gas tune? Not really. I mean, you need the turbo and a downpipe. Your car already has a TU pump. On pump gas, I don't see you overwhelming a TU pump. So XHP, make sure you get a trans tune and probably like a good set of wheels and tires and stuff to actually enjoy it. But no, you can make that a pretty simple setup. You don't need port injection or anything. See any upgrades on the new X7? Yeah. So just because of stuff that's been going on, I haven't really had a chance to post any more videos on it, but we will be doing some stuff to the X7 too. So my goal there is to basically do like more Gen 2 stuff, maintenance, tuning, testing, stuff like that. Basically all the things that I didn't have available because I only had Gen 1s. So now I can test like Gen 2 features and stuff on that car. So everybody that's saying make the world's fastest 7, that's probably not going to happen. I think the only other person I know is like Steven Samuel over at what's his shop called? Not Euro Center. I can't even remember the name anymore. But he's got one with like a pure 800 and stuff. That's not in my goals right now. So we'll make it more fun to drive, but it's not going to go full race car. Sorry if that is not your not what you want to see. People are like, "Oh, you should make it a track hawk killer," and blah blah blah. I can't do that to this car. I cannot. I can't afford to do that to this car. I need this car to just be a good, reliable daily driver. Let's see. Do you recommend replacing injectors? Not personally. Um, I've had cars with injectors go bad. I know a lot of platforms with injectors that go bad. So I think some of the injector concerns on the B58 are probably blown out of proportion. Um, Usually when they fail, you'll get misfires and have issues that you just need to address before it gets bad. So for me, I'm not planning on replacing any of my injectors proactively. I just stay on top of my maintenance, and if I'm having an issue, I park the car. If it's not running right, tow it home, get it fixed. Just regular stuff. But I think some of us don't have a lot of mechanical sympathy on these cars because it ends up. Let's see. In your honest opinion, are any of these catless downpipe brands better than the others enough to justify the $100 price difference? Uh, some of them are better than others. As far as justifying the price difference, I can't really say, but I've seen some downpipes where uh, the flex pipe will crack, like the flex section, the welds on it will crack and stuff like that. So I don't know that I would just buy like an eBay one necessarily, like where I don't know anything about it. It probably works fine, but I've seen some fail. So it really just kind of depends. But I mean, I had a VRSF one on my 440i. When I got it at the time, that was the cheap one. I know nowadays it's like regular and everybody's buying like Alibaba ones or Temu ones or whatever. But it was okay for me. And I bought it used from somebody that had been running it for a while. And a lot of them come from, China and stuff like that anyway. So I don't think there's anything like design wise that necessarily makes one better than the other, but you do want to make sure the manufacturing is good so you don't run into issues, because that does happen, unfortunately. As much as we say a pipe is a pipe, some people can't make a pipe. Disappointing, I know. Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, because this wasn't even a conversation 5 years ago or whatever, right? But VRSF was the China option for everything. So now that it's literally like China's just saying, "Hey, just come here. Like, we can give it to you." It's more of a conversation. More people are looking at it as an option. So again, no shade. Like, do what you want. I know a bunch of people have good luck with it, but that's not what I would personally do. Just buy from a reputable company, especially now they're all on sale for ridiculous prices. I think I've seen new downpipes for less than $200. So if you're looking at one, now's the time to get one. Let's see. I'm going stage 2 plus on my B58 540i. Is the MHD Flex Fuel Kit compatible? So there's a couple things I'm not quite getting on that, because for a Gen 2, there's no stage 2 plus. And I'm not sure why the Flex Fuel would say it's only compatible with EcuTech. I might need a little more confirmation. Like, what year is your 540i? It might not be a Gen 2. If it's a Gen 1, then the MHD Flex Fuel Kit will work with MHD. Sorry, I don't think I understand the question. If you reword it, I can hopefully try to help you out. Let's see, should I go pure or DAW? I can't help you guys there, man. I'm sorry. I've only tried Dynamic AutoWorks and I like it. You guys know I had my issue with it and they were able to fix it for me, and I've been beating on it, tracking it ever since. So I am a fan of it. I think Pure makes good products too, but I wouldn't say one way or the other will make you faster or safer or more reliable. I tell people I got a Dynamic AutoWorks Turbo and I like it. So that's why I usually recommend it, because I know it's good. So, and I saw them do the testing. I saw development pictures. They reached out to me before it was even released so that I could help them test it. So I kind of know their process. So I trust that product. Let's see, spool transmission DIY. Man, there's something about the trans upgrades that just it makes me especially nervous. Cause I even did or I considered doing an LSD upgrade myself and doing like the rebuild kits with like a wave track or something like that. And I don't know, man, it just makes me really nervous. And I mean, I've rebuilt an engine and I don't think I did the best job, but it was mine. So it was kind of like I could just drive it, do whatever with it, right? But on these cars, it's like, do I really want to screw that up potentially? Especially on video. Like, I'm assuming you guys don't just want me to do it, right? You want me to record it, post the DIY, and like share it with everybody so you can all tell me what I did wrong. Um, it's just, I don't know. I am extremely hesitant to do that without a company really backing me and making sure I do it right. And I need to make sure I have like the tools and equipment and everything for it because I know there are a lot of things that just bolt in, but there are a lot of things that you need to check, clearance, line up, like there are a lot of fine-tune tools that you need for that kind of work that I probably don't have and I wouldn't be aware of. So I don't know. Not yet. Definitely not anytime soon. Let's see. I blew my stock turbo and got bits of metal in the intake manifold, but only small metal dust particles into the combustion chamber. You really can't say. I mean, I know a lot of people that have had that happen. Like, I think Jamie was the first one that at least posted about it publicly when he blew his stock turbo. That was back in like 2020 or something. So if you guys go look at No Clutch Garage, I think he posted the videos of that. That was a part of the reason why he pulled his intake manifold initially was to pick out all the pieces and stuff. But then it seemed like it was fine after. So, if the pieces are fine enough to make it through the intake manifold, I would be inclined to say it's not going to cause an issue long term. Nothing that would be like catastrophic. But just make sure you clean it out. Like make sure you get all the pieces out of the intake manifold, fully take it apart. Um, I know some people like to like slosh it around in gasoline and stuff to make sure everything gets broken down and released completely and shaken out. But yeah, I mean, I'd almost be inclined just to say like swap intake manifolds, like get a new one so you're not worried about it. Let's see, DME unlock. So I'm going to be making a video on that. I know there's been some news recently of shops saying that they can do that in the United States, but I've gotten more information on it. I'm just kind of waiting to post my video. So I would say be patient. I guess I don't think anything is like right on the horizon personally, but there could be new options coming out that are less risky or faster. We'll have to see though. I think some of it's still being proven right now. So you're still trying to decide on suspension. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't the B12 Pro Kit like just like struts and springs? Because I think so. First of all, I keep having people tell me that they want KWV2 because I have KWV1s on my car, and when I recommend KWV1s, they say, well, they at least want to get KWV2s, and I don't know where the idea came from that the V2s are like the minimum requirement, but I guess like somewhere out in the community or whatever, people have been saying like that's what you should get. The V1s are just cheap entry level coilovers, but you get the V2s if you want better performance or better comfort or something like that. And so, just as a reminder, like the V1s and the V2s are the exact same, The only difference is the V2s are adjustable. So if you don't plan on adjusting your V2s and making it stiff at the track and then soft on the street or like something like that, it's going to drive the exact same. If you install a V2 and drive away, it's the exact same as a V1. So there's nothing really there that I would say makes a V2 better than a V1 for most people, especially because you can't adjust it without dropping the suspension. So that's why I say just get KWV1s, or if you're somewhere where it doesn't really snow and you don't get salt on the roads and stuff, you can get the ST suspension, and that is basically KWV1s without the stainless steel shock bodies. So you won't have to worry about corrosion and stuff like that on the KWs, but plenty of people get by fine with the STs. So that's why I usually tell people save their money, because they install KWV2s and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy I went this route, but they don't have anything to compare it to. They don't realize that they're saying that the KWV1s would ride great too, because when they installed it, the settings, like the standard settings on the V2 in the middle, is the same as V1. So it's like their best kept secret. And then the V2s have adjustable compression, I think. And then the V3s also have adjustable rebound. So again, unless you plan on adjusting both of those individually, which can be really easy to screw up, there's no reason to get a V3 over a V2. If you buy a V3 and you just install it and you drive it away and you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, congratulations, your car drives like it has KWV1s. So that's why I say just get V1s for everybody that has been asking me the past couple weeks. And as far as comfort, KWV1s drive amazing. There's a lot of comfort in high quality coilovers. The bigger issue, I think, is when people get cheap coilovers like BC Racing or whatever, and they have these linear springs that are more designed for performance and like drifting, basically. So it's very stiff and it's very harsh. You can have stiff without being harsh, right? Like there's performance and composed stiff, and then there's harsh, crashy, crappy stiff. And that's what I got when I had BC coilovers. The KWs, they drive amazing. As long as you don't slam it like my car, it'll drive like stock. My car still drives great, but it's really low, so it's a little stiffer and stuff like that. You feel bumps a little more. But most people don't do what I did. I'm the idiot. But for sure, I would get KW V1s. And if you have adaptive suspension, like on my 340i, I really like my H&R springs. Lowers the car without going too crazy. Still have like comfort and sport mode, so I can adjust the dampening from inside the car, and it's great. If I had adjustable suspension on the 440, it probably would have been a bigger consideration because I started with H&R springs on the 440, but I wanted to go lower, so I got the coilovers. Let's see, any update on the intake manifold? Yeah, I know I owe you guys that video, and I do apologize. I think I've mentioned a couple times, I didn't have any issues with it. I just haven't had time to like put all the data together to make a video. I'm going to make a larger video out of that, just talking about intake manifolds in general. So it won't only be about the Bimmer Network one. It'll just be about my experience running stock, both Bimmer Network intake manifolds, the RK manifold, modifying the manifolds, running different coolant fluids and things like that, and all the testing that I've done. I'm going to try to put that into one video to help you guys understand like how it works and make better decisions. But I think the Bimmer Network one, it works great. You guys saw my track video. I used it for a whole weekend without issue, other than the fuel leaks and stuff, which I think there's an opportunity there. But once I got that fixed, it was fine. See, do I have any promo codes? Not for Dynamic AutoWorks. We do have codes through Bimmer Network though. So like I said, I'll be posting my Black Friday video later this week, but if you guys use my Bimmer Network link, it already puts my discount code in there, and then they have additional Black Friday codes on top of that going in this week as well. I think The best discounts are going to be on Friday and Saturday. So just be patient. And like I said in the video, I'll talk about it so you guys can plan your purchases and stuff. There's a lot of sales on Bimmer Network because they sell everything. So, it's different than an individual company that's just selling their own product. If you guys go through Bimmer Network, you can buy your turbo, your fuel system, your intercoolers, your tune, like everything through them and get all of their discounts together. There will not be inventory left. I can tell you that. I've been through this, 4 years now? So I can guarantee you, if you buy a turbo on Black Friday, expect it in January. That's just how it works. I mean, unless you literally buy it at like 12:02 a.m. when the sales start, but they always get back ordered. They are built to order, so it always takes a while to catch up. But again, what are you going to be doing right now? You're going to slap the turbo on your car, go outside and floor it and spin through fifth gear because it's 20 degrees. Like, we'll be okay. Let's just be patient. That's why, because when I got my turbo, it was like in January and I didn't even install it until March because it's like, what am I going to do? But it'll be worth the wait, I think. The savings for amount of money that you're going to be able to keep in your pocket, I think you can wait a couple of weeks for your turbo. Just please don't be that guy that's messaging them every week for an update. Let's see, what are my thoughts on BMW 4-cylinders? I think they're cool. I think if it wasn't for the B58, they probably would get a lot more attention. And there are some people out there doing pretty cool things with them. We've got a couple out there over 500 or even 600 horsepower. I don't know how reliable they are at that point, but I also don't hear about them blowing up all the time. I just don't think that people push them as much as the B58s. So, and most people that are pushing that kind of power build them anyway. So it seems like they can lean on some B58 development and use the same rods and pistons and stuff. They just get 4 instead of 6, and then they build their engines. Let's see, as a stage 1 multi-map. Oops, where'd it go? There it goes. Is a stage 1 multi-map 60, 85, 100% safe if driven 60% most of the time? Yeah. I mean, anything that you do within the tune features is safe. If you're driving at 60%, that's basically stock. So I don't even think you need to do that. I think you can just have, stock in one map or whatever, and then stage 1 in another map, if that's capable. Actually, I don't know if that's capable on that tune. That's not capable, is it? That's what we were all asking for. We want stage 1 on one map and stage 2 on another or something, but they wouldn't do that. Anyway, I'm not a tuner, so I can't complain about that because I don't know how hard it would be to implement. But yeah, that should be fine. What's the most power I can make on my 440i on 93? I have a TU pump, catless, downpipe, and boot mode. If you upgrade your turbo, I would expect around 500 to 550. That's typically where people end up on pump gas. But it depends on your pump gas quality and what you ask for in your tune. I posted my video at 20 PSI on the Dynamic AutoWorks turbo. I made, I think, 480 wheel horsepower. So just under 500. And it's just a low boost track day tune. Like, that's the tune that I use at the track. So in theory, you could probably make a little more. Like I said, low 500s is what I would shoot for to be safe. If you have really good pump gas, then you can maybe make a little more, but it's not typical. Let's see. I think people that do big power overlook the fact that you should do suspension, brakes, arms, and safety. And I understand your perspective. I don't think it's 100% required because our cars are very capable and probably underrated from the factory, especially things like brakes. Like, people hate me because I say that just because you make more power doesn't mean that you need a big brake kit or something like that, right? And it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier, like when we were talking about safety with Mikey's car and stuff. Everybody's saying what they shoulda, woulda, coulda did, but it's more about how they drive the car than how much power they're making. If I make 800 horsepower and all I do is daily drive my car to work, slowing down from 70 miles an hour isn't going to be any different whether I have a big turbo on or not. So when you go for big power, you need to build your entire car around its intended purpose. That I agree with. Just everybody's purposes aren't the same. So I had the stock brakes on the 440 up until whatever 2 years ago or something. And when I upgraded the brakes, it was cool, but I don't feel like I needed it. It stops faster, especially with the upgraded brake pads. It's less prone to heat fade or brake fade when I'm, driving on back roads and stuff. But the only time I really felt like I needed upgraded brakes was in the 340 when I went to the track. And then it was like, even with stock power, I need upgraded brakes. Otherwise, my brakes are getting soft and they're not reliable. So big power street car doesn't need it as much as a dedicated track car. Or, in theory, that's not a dedicated track car, but that's my thinking. So, and especially because most people are just doing a straight line, I don't tell them as they're like the same suspension mods. Like I do handling suspension mods when they're more focused on traction and straight line performance. It's a different recipe. Let's see, billet rear subframe inserts or PowerFlex black poly inserts. Either one, whatever you can get a deal on. They both kind of accomplish the same thing. That was another video where people were upset and saying that I said something wrong, but in my opinion, it worked great. I think a big part of it was the LSD. It almost gave me the same sensation as like doing solid motor mounts or solid transmission mounts or something, which makes sense because it is isolating a part of your suspension that supports your drivetrain. But I just really didn't expect it to feel so direct. And at the track, I don't know that I could notice it at the track because I didn't really do A to B testing, but the rear end felt solid. And that's what you want. You don't want the rear end to feel sloppy. You don't want it to feel disconnected, like it's doing its own thing when you're playing with the power and the brakes and stuff. You want it to feel like it's sharp and going exactly where you're pointing the steering wheel. And that's how it felt for me. So I think with the LSD, it just amplified the performance or the feel of it even more so that I got the performance I was looking for. But yeah, I have billet inserts as well. So those are probably going to go in the 440. And then I guess I can do like kind of back-to-back testing, even though the cars are very different. But I did the poly ones on the 340 because that's what I had at the time. Let's see, an oil pump issue. So yeah, I just made a video talking about that. And it's funny because so I made the video, and usually what happens is after I post a video, a bunch of people reach out to me, right? Anytime I post a video, I get a bunch of messages from people that have the issue, don't have the issue, think I'm stupid, think I'm blowing it out of proportion, blah, blah, blah. So that was no different with the oil pump, because obviously that's something that we talk about a lot. A lot of people were telling me like they've had their car for 1,010 miles and their car was built in 1942 and it's never had an oil pump failure and whatever. So it feels like, there's a lot of hit or miss there. Like you really don't know. But of course, a couple weeks later, I got my X7 and I tried to measure the oil level and it didn't work. And then a couple weeks later or a couple days later, I tried to measure it again and it did work. And then that's when I started doing even more research where people were talking about the oil pressure that's required for you to be able to measure your oil level. And that's what I'm telling people to do, is to check your oil pressure and see if the oil pressure is stable. And I think that's a better indicator than just trying to measure your oil level, because really that could be caused by a lot of different things. But if the oil pressure is too high at idle, that may be an indicator that something's wrong, and then you can bring that up to your service advisor. So yeah, that's what I recommend instead of just checking your oil level over and over. Yeah, man, the Bimmer Network deal. So again, because I think, like I said, I'll be talking about it in my video this week, but they've got like 8% on everything. So that's like the minimum discount. And it goes up from there. So turbos, fuel pumps, I think they're honoring a lot of other companies' sales if you buy through them. Um, they stock a lot of parts as well, so they can do like same day shipping on a lot of things as long as it's in stock. But again, this is the time of year where you just need to be patient because things will go out of stock and be back ordered, and it can take a couple weeks sometimes for things to get shipped out. So I'm excited to work with them just because of that. Like I knew Trevor before he started Bimmer Network, so I know what he's trying to do with them, with that company, and it's just somebody in the community trying to support the rest of the community. That's how I see it. See, do I have track insurance? I do not. So that's a risk that I do take on. And a big part of it is because I'm not racing. I'm doing an HPDE. It's not wheel to wheel. So really the worst case scenario is if I do something stupid, in my opinion. Like, yes, there are scenarios where somebody drops oil on the track or something like that and you lose it. But for me to crash, generally it's like I'm driving poorly. So that's what I focus on. I think we were talking about that before, but I don't drive 10 tenths on the track. I don't fully turn off or disable stability control or anything. I'm there to have fun. So I drive in a way that is fun, which isn't dangerous. So, I just kind of take on that risk myself. And it's really expensive. Like just for a weekend, it's very expensive. I know it needs to be expensive because most likely they're going to pay out a lot if you need to use it. But I can't, at this point in my life, afford the track days that I want to do and track insurance. Let's see. How do I currently make 600 wheel horsepower on my 440? Because of that. That's my friend. But yeah, I've been making 600 for probably about almost 3 years, maybe like 2.5 years. And it's been solid. Stock engine, stock train, it's upgraded clutch, but it has manual transmission. I know a lot of my new subscribers miss that, or I don't talk about it as much, but 440i is 6-speed manual, 340i is 8-speed automatic. Let's see, other than YouTube, what do I do for a living? So I'm an engineer by trade. I'm a mechanical engineer. So work in product design for non-automotive parts. I used to work in automotive, but not anymore. Someone overfilled my engine, I believe, and I cooked. I guess it depends on how bad they overfilled it and how much you're driving it. But I would just drain it and fill it up properly if you think it's overfilled. The biggest risk that I've seen with an overfilled engine is like your crankshaft will hit it. If the level is high enough, your crank will like churn through it and can break down your oil. It can cause issues with your crank spinning. It can cause a lot of problems. Your crank should not contact your oil like that. So drain, fill, see if your issue goes away. Let's see, 8% doesn't apply on pure. I guess there probably are some. Sorry, maybe I should have been more specific. I'm sure there are some things that are excluded, but generally, like the bolt-ons and stuff is what I was thinking. Like non-Bimmer Network branded parts, or even parts where the companies themselves might not have announced the sale. Bimmer Network will cover it. Let me see if there are exclusions. Yeah, it just says some exclusions may apply. So I would assume things like built engines and stuff might not be covered. It's just because of how much they are. So sorry if I said that incorrectly. I didn't mean to imply that. Let's see. What's my setup on the 440i? Oh, okay. So, I mean, we can talk about it. So, this is the RK AutoWorks intake manifold. That is a Doc Race top mount turbo. It has an EFR 8374 turbo kit. Then I've also got port injection on my intake manifold, controlled by a motive reflex, and it is tuned by Odin Tuned. So on everything from E40 up to E85, it makes around 630 wheel horsepower, and we limit torque to around 600 foot-pounds, like just below 600 foot-pounds, because of the clutch that I have in the car. It has a 550i clutch. So it's an OEM plus kind of upgrade. It can't support all the power, but it does support a lot more than stock. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. Kind of like most setups with an upgraded turbo and ethanol, it's pretty easy to hit 600 wheel horsepower. I just added port injection and a low pressure fuel pump and stuff because I wanted to run full E85 and not worry about mixing, but it makes the same power on E40. So yeah, I think the easiest method to hit 600 wheel horsepower, like on most of these B58s, is turbo, high pressure fuel pump, E40 or E50 mix. And that puts you back maybe like $4,000. Let's see, sorry, I'm starting to miss messages again. See, the annoying thing, that's the only annoying thing with this chat. Even if I don't scroll, sometimes it scrolls and I lose where I am and I'm trying to figure out where was the last question or what was I reading before, and all of a sudden I'm gone. Let's see, between boot mode and MHD. So I have MHD on both of my cars now. I had boot mode on the 440 originally, and then I had MG Flasher, and then I went with MHD. I don't hate boot mode. I didn't have any issues with it, but MHD offers more features for the B58 currently. So that's why I switched to MHD, and because I wanted the advanced reflex integration. I think boot mode abandoned that because they were working on their own board, and now they've got the Rev2 board coming out. So I'm assuming it'll have similar capability as long as you use the Rev2 board with boot mode. But, you know, I was making jam back then, so I didn't have time to wait. So I got a reflex and went with the tuning software that supported it. So for most things, they're pretty equivalent. They both have their pros and cons. The other thing with MHD is the way that they deflex fuel is a lot better than boot mode. But boot mode, yeah, I mean, they have a lot of features. They were the first tuners for F-Series cars, so they've got like a lot of capability with their software and stuff that other companies aren't doing the best with, in my opinion. But we'll see. I also like boot mode. It has like the built-in log viewer and stuff, and it also automatically uploads things to the cloud so you can access it on your computer and share it really easily. Whereas on MHD, you've got to like upload it to Data's app, and it just takes a lot more work. And it saves stuff locally to your device. So if you switch phones or something, then you lose everything. That's kind of annoying. But generally speaking, I prefer the MHD tune personally. Can a 440i X-Drive with manual and a 550i clutch handle more than 500 horsepower? Yes, it can. Except, well, this is an X-Drive, but yes, it can handle 500 plus horsepower. My main thing I recommend is just keeping torque low. So I think I'm making like 590 foot-pounds of torque, and it's holding all right. And replace your clutch before it starts slipping. I think that's another big point. I replaced my clutch before I even pushed the stock turbo. So if it's already slipping, then it seems like it's more likely it'll slip again in the future. If you're like, what do you call it? Flywheel. If your flywheel's already kind of wearing down, then putting a new clutch on it, it doesn't last as long. Let's see. With the downpipe company making the CEL sim, is it more beneficial to buy one of those or a cheap downpipe? I don't know what the CEL sim is, but I would just code it out in my tune. I don't think that's needed. The only time that might be beneficial is if you need to flash your stock tune for like emissions testing or something, so you can't disable it in your tune because the monitor will show not ready. But a lot of places allow you to have one or two monitors not ready anyway, so it works fine. And pro tip, which I need to make a video about emissions too, but if you guys have an ethanol tune and you're doing like an actual sniffer test where people are like, oh no, they actually plug it into my exhaust and like measure the emissions and stuff. So disabling the check engine light doesn't help. If you have an ethanol tune, it runs cleaner. That's why flex fuel is considered like emissions positive. It burns cleaner. So if you go to a shop and have like an E40 or E50 tune, even with a catless downpipe, you can pass. Pro tip. Let's see. I've been reading about quality issues on Pure, Dynamic AutoWorks, and Vargas turbos. Would you recommend to wait out the bad review period? And does the brand choice matter? So I don't think there's like a period of bad reviews. I think that happens from time to time. Again, on my Dynamic AutoWorks turbo, I had an issue. The wastegate got stuck. They fixed it, and I've had no issues ever since then. I know plenty of other people that have bought their turbos and have had no issues since then. So it's kind of hit or miss. I mean, your car came with a warranty and somebody probably used it. It's something that happens. It doesn't inherently mean that the platform or the company is bad and making a bad product, but it's a risk that you're taking. Like, you should just be aware that this new part that I put on the car might have issues, and that's why they offer warranties as well. So I would just stick with ones that you think are higher quality. Out of those three, I usually recommend Pure, Dynamic AutoWorks. But I've seen Pure have issues as well. Pure was like the go-to several years ago, and they've had problems. I've seen them have issues. So yeah, and I also think that's why a lot of people have new product offerings, because they make design changes and then sell it as an upgrade, but really it's like they're fixing something or maybe updating their supply chain or whatever, and so they're making a new product. But that's an easy way for them to cut off the old one and start making the new ones. But yeah, again, I've only had Dynamic AutoWorks out of those, and I had good luck with it, so I recommend it. Let's see. Gosh, I'm way behind. Sorry, guys. Can we get some more driving videos of your 440? Yeah, man. So I messed up this year. I definitely did, because I was planning on doing more events, and I have not had time. So what I'm thinking about doing is just going out there by myself. Normally I run with a group, like a bunch of friends, and we go down to the country, get out of Dodge, and run some back roads. But I'll probably try to do it just by myself one of these days and get some videos going, because this year I haven't gotten to do anything. I've barely driven the car, but I miss it too. I enjoy it a lot, and I think those POV videos, a lot of you guys enjoy it. So I will try my best to get at least one before the end of the year. I really need to do it several times a year, but I did a bad job. Let's see. What's up, man? Welcome. Thanks for supporting. I remind you guys too. So if you guys want to support, join the Patreon. We've got a Discord server. We chat in there all the time. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. If you have questions about your build or just want to, shoot the breeze and talk about cars and stuff, that's where I do it. That's where I'm the most active. So join the Patreon, join the Discord. You can see videos early without ads. We do giveaways. Yeah, it's just a cool place to be. So highly recommend it. I always have it linked in my videos. I think it's as cheap as $5 a month. And yeah, I appreciate everybody that's on there so far already. You guys are really supporting me a lot, and I appreciate it. And you're keeping me busy because there's a lot of questions in there. A lot of people asking about picking parts and stuff like that. But yeah, we'll keep that going into next year too. Let's see. I thought MHD and boot mode were the same, and the XDF file used was the important factor. No, absolutely not. I think as a purpose that they serve, they are similar because they are both flashing software. So it's a tool that you use to flash software onto your car. But the way that they implement their software is very different. So, for example, boot mode, their original claim to fame was that they had the cloud support, right? So with MHD, if your device gets dropped in a sink or whatever, like gets dropped in water and it breaks and you lose all the files and stuff, it's gone. All your tuning files, all your log files, everything is stored locally. And I know like a lot of people like to have a tablet in their car. So if you want to flash files with that tablet, you have to upload it to that tablet and then flash it to the car, or have like a network connection or something so you can download it from your email and stuff. So it's just very different. Whereas boot mode, everything is on the cloud. If you log in on your computer, on your phone, whatever, you see the same stuff. So it's like very different strategy for storage of stuff versus MHD. And then they also have like their aftermarket tuners. Everything is done through the app. So you request a tune file through the app. They send you your tune files through the app. You send them back your logs through the app. And it's all like built into the boot mode software. With MHD, everything's offline. You get a file that you have to download and email to somebody. Then they email you a new file and you have to download that file and then pull it into MHD. So it's just, for lack of better words, like older kind of technology. Like, nowadays everything is on Google Drive or some kind of network server and stuff like that where you can access it anywhere. That's more like boot mode. But the other thing with like MHD, for example, with the flex fuel, it's important to me because I can scale my flex fuel better. So you can have pump gas, full E85, and like an optimal mix in the middle. So you can scale things up to your optimal mix and then down to full E85, or like in my case, it's flat. So boost ramps up to E40, but then I'll get the same boost from E40 to E85 and it won't make any more power. Whereas with boot mode, it's just like a straight line. So you can't take advantage of like that E40 or E50 mix where you make the most power. So yeah, again, they both have their pros and cons, different things that I like about each type of software as far as functionality and how it applies your tunes and stuff. And they both have different companies making their off-the-shelf maps. So of course that's different. Their off-the-shelf maps are not the same. Yeah. So I use MHD because I've gotten very comfortable with it, and my cars somehow always end up with a motor reflex, and that works best with MHD currently. So happy with my decision. And if you're buying MHD, just wait. If you're planning on going MHD, yeah, give it a couple days. See, what are your thoughts on the Speed Tech kit? So that's actually funny because I'm not a fan of it inherently because of one design thing that they did by putting the MAF sensor in the charge pipe. I just think it doesn't make any sense and it complicates things. And so I've already had somebody message me saying like, oh, they had their Speed Tech kit on and they got like a MAF sensor code, or like their MAF sensor melted or got damaged or something. And the reason is because it's not designed to be in your charge pipe. It's designed to be before your intake and experience ambient temperature air. The air coming out of your turbo is like over 200 degrees. That's not what it's set up for. And their whole shtick behind it is like, oh, it helps avoid a check engine light. But one, if you have a check engine light for your MAF sensor, the car still drives fine. Ask me how I know. And the other thing is, when you get a custom tune anyway, you can disable it in your tune. You're not going to use your MAF sensor to control anything when you're in boost. So it doesn't help to have it reading crazy turbulent, crazy hot air that's coming out of your turbo. So that's kind of my hang up on the kit. But I mean, we've got some really fast cars running it, like my local buddy with his M240i. just posted like I think a 3.6 second or 3.8 second 60 to 130. So it's like a rocket ship, for lack of better words. So obviously it can definitely make power, but yeah, I'm just not a fan of that design feature. Not that it matters to anybody. If you get it, what I usually recommend is just disabling the MAF sensor anyway. Let's see, what's my opinion on the HP70 swaps? I think it's solid. That's something that I would consider on the 340, especially because on rear wheel drive cars, it's easier. On X drive cars, it needs a lot more work, either like a custom drive shaft or, well, I think it needs a custom drive shaft and an adapter for, is it the transmission mount or something? It needs like special stuff for it to work. So, if you get it on an all-wheel drive car, more power to you. But on an X-drive car, it's almost plug and play. You just swap your flywheel and it works. So yeah, and it's a lot cheaper than like an actual built trans. Let's see. Did BMW update the transmission in the M340i from the older 340? Yes. So BMW, I don't know that I would say BMW updated it, but it is a newer ZF transmission. And the F30s, it's an HP50. And then the G20s and all the TU cars, it's an HP51. So it's like the next generation of HP50 transmission. So slightly newer tech, slightly newer software. I can definitely say my X7 drives a lot better than my 340i. I don't know if that is due to the tuning specific to the X7 or it's an HP51 characteristic. I feel a lot less limited without XHP because in my 340, it just did not feel very intuitive. Like it wasn't doing what I wanted. It was always just hunting for eighth gear. It was trying to get to eighth gear as quickly as possible. And that seemed like the only tuning feature that they put into it. Whereas on my X7, it's slower, but it feels more responsive because depending on my pedal position, it keeps the revs up and just naturally it's more peppy, like it responds to how you're driving instead of just focusing on efficiency and trying to get the RPMs as low as possible. So I think the software for sure, tuning is better. The transmission shifts smoother. It almost, you can't really feel it shift. And yeah, like I said, that might be specific to like X7 tuning because it's a different class of car, but it is different for sure. Stock for stock. Let's see. Appreciate it, man. Yeah. Again, no hangups. Like I do try to respond to people on Instagram and stuff like that, but I've been way behind for a very long time. And I just tell people like, if you really need help, want to support, whatever, Patreon's the way to go. And I respond to messages all day. So I've got access to it on my phone. It's just way easier. If you join the Discord, then I see your questions right away. Whereas with Instagram, I've got to like find time for it. So thanks for everybody that's been patient. And also thanks for everybody that's joined the Patreon and the Discord. Let's see. Oh, what's up, JP? I really appreciate that, man. Let's see. So your question is my M340i transmission safe with MHD stage 2? I would say yes. I haven't seen any issues with transmissions on off-the-shelf maps. But the only thing that you want to consider is sometimes the transmission itself is going to limit your power. So kind of like the name suggests, HP 50. 50 is representing the torque limit of 500 Newton meters. So depending on how your tune reports torque to your transmission, it will limit power. So even though it won't damage your transmission, I do recommend using XHP to raise your torque limits so that you can get the full power that your car is capable of. But these transmissions are very underrated. Usually, I tell people around 600 foot-pounds is the safe limit, and that's around, I think, just north of 700 Newton meters. So can definitely support a lot more torque than the trans is rated for in most cases. Yeah, Larry. A lot of people have told me that too. I really want to tune. That was also one reason why I started with boot mode because I liked the idea that it had a built-in tune editor. Even though it wasn't until afterwards I found out that I can't start with their tunes. You have to start with the stock tune. Um, but I've had stuff like that in the past where we had tuning software that gave you an off the shelf map and then you could adjust it from there to increase boost or timing or like whatever to modify it and see how it performed. And that's how we learned how to tune, even though we weren't really learning anything. We just, it made us feel like we were. But yeah, I would like to actually learn tuning at some point. I don't know that I would offer it as a service or anything, but just again, because I'm weird, like I like that stuff. I want to be able to try things and test things whenever I want. So yeah, maybe one day we'll see. Oh, dude, JP, I really appreciate that, man. Thank you. I really do appreciate that, bro. Yeah, if you've got any other questions, let me know. Let's see. Do we think we'll ever get DME unlocks here in the States? I do. I just don't know when, unfortunately. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. Even I thought by this point we would have it here. Like, even if it wasn't OBD unlocking, I thought we'd at least have a bench unlock strategy or something that we can do. So I don't know, man. I'm stuck on it. But like I said, I will be making a video to talk about it, the current options, and what we can probably expect in the future. When can we expect it? I would say give me a couple weeks, probably like early to mid December. Let's see, what's the best mod under $400? So let's see. When I got my car, I spent $400 on springs and a muffler delete, and so it lowered the car, stiffened the suspension, and gave it a little more volume. And I was very, very happy with that. I think the muffler delete leaves a little bit to be desired from those people. Like it's something that I like because I like my cars loud, and the B58 already sounds really good. So I just wanted to give it more volume. Some people might prefer like a downpipe instead because that'll not be as loud and also give you a little bit of quicker spool and stuff like that. But I didn't want that. So that's what I'd say. Probably like lowering springs and then something to your exhaust. Yeah, that's a solid starting point. You don't need a tune, but it'll make it handle better and just be more fun to drive. Let's see. Do I recommend tuning the box with that XHP before stage one or tune stage one? I mean, if you have to pick, stage one will make a bigger performance difference than XHP, but I think XHP still makes the car more enjoyable to drive because it does adjust the shift points and just gives you like better driving characteristics from the transmission because that's mostly what it controls, right? It doesn't just give you more power like a stage one tune does. It's like every time it shifts and how you're driving the car, how D mode works, how S mode works, how M mode works, all of that is based on your transmission tune. So that's where I said, even with a stock tune, I think XHP gives a better driving experience. It just won't be faster. So it depends on your goals. Do I have an opinion on Ecutech? Yeah, I don't. I think all the hype is lost because now everybody else has the same features. The only reason I wanted Ecutech at the time was because of flex fuel, but nothing about it, in my opinion, is inherently better than any other tuning software. It offered less features and had no off the shelf map. So everything you did was a custom tune. And that meant that every change that you made to the car cost more money. So people are spending $1,500 on a stock turbo tune and then having to start over when they upgrade their turbo, which I guess isn't out of the ordinary on some platforms, but definitely more than I was used to spending on something like that. But people were eating it up because flex fuel and reflex integration and stuff like that. So now that everybody has that, I think they don't have the sauce anymore. You know, it's too expensive and needs more features, needs better integration for the end user. That's what's important to me. I just got an M2 with an S58. Have you seen any issues with it so far? I think the only thing that I've heard about, which sounds kind of random, but the brakes. I've seen several videos about M2 brakes because either they're slightly different than M3 and M4 brakes, or they're supposed to be the same, but something was wrong with like a batch of brakes on M2, something like that. So that's the only thing that I would keep an eye out for, maybe do some research on. I can't remember what if it was like clunking or squeaking or something with the brakes was like messed up on some cars. So yeah, do some research there. G87 brakes. Do I know if there's been any progress on swapping a G80 transmission to an M340? The only thing that I've seen is to an A90. I have seen an A90 with an HP76 swap. I can't remember if I've seen an M340i, but it would probably be a similar process. I don't know that it's bolt-on yet, but there have been a couple individual shops that have shown that they've gotten it done. So they might be working on like fine tuning it or whatever, or maybe they're waiting on XHP to support it. I don't know. I don't think it's really useful. Not at this point, anyway. It's not going to be cheap, right? Like that's why the HP70 swaps were so popular on F Series, because you can get them relatively cheap, like less than $2,000. An HP76, I highly doubt it'll be cheap. F90 or G80? Ooh, that's kind of a good question. I don't think I've ever put those two on the same level. Honestly, I would probably go, if it was just me, not as like a performance car, like a race car or anything, but just like I'm buying a car to drive and enjoy, I might go with an F90. And that's really weird to say. I've never seriously considered an F90, but looking at them side by side, I think it looks better. It's faster out of the box. It's more comfortable. It just better matches how I would use it. I probably wouldn't track it, but I also don't imagine myself tracking a G80 either. Like I wouldn't buy that for a track car. So it wouldn't need to serve that purpose, you know? But if it was just like a fun street car, an F90 might have it, man. That's an interesting that's an interesting comparison. I've never actually thought about that. And I always slight the F90 because BMW V8s suck. But as a car, when it's working and everything, I mean, it's cool. It's a cool car, and it looks really good. It's probably the best looking modern BMW. Oh, what's up, Rob? Thank you, man. Thank you for sending that. Do I think the Rev 2 will be better than the Reflex and MHD? I think there's a lot to be seen there. And anybody that's been in the B58 world or like monitoring, tuning, and stuff for a long time knows that Rev 2 has been in the works for a long, long time. I think the first post that I saw, and I posted it, or I posted pictures of it in my Rev 2 board video, because I've had it saved since then. But literally since like 2020, Boot Mode has been posting that they're working on a board to add like capability to their tuning software. And so it seems like after being worked on for so long that it should be amazing. Like it's got to introduce something new, but I don't know what they would do. Like a lot of the stuff that they mentioned in their release paperwork and product information and stuff, I think is more important to tuners than it is to the end user, which isn't a problem because you need tuners to be able to support it for it to work well. And you want to go with what your tuner recommends, which usually is what is easiest for them. But I don't know that it gets past a hurdle or a limitation of reflex. You know, it's like if it's just incrementally better, is everybody going to switch? I don't know. So there's just more to be seen there, but I don't think it's as revolutionary as a lot of people thought it was going to be after waiting all this time. I think they said, flex ray communication, so it'll be faster, and it has native, what is it, like EGT support and stuff like that, which isn't necessarily like a reflex function. But yeah, yeah, and it keeps getting pushed back. So every time they post it, it's coming soon. Every time. And after a while, you just don't care, man. Like I said, I had boot mode for years. It didn't come out. Reflex had been out for a while. I finally decided to try it. Reflex has been revising their box, revising their firmware, adding capability. MHD has been adding capability, and the Rev 2 still isn't available to purchase. You're pissed. I'm pissed too. Let's say it all together. I mean, and again, I'm not a tuner. I don't know what it takes to make this stuff work, so I can't say that they're not doing the right thing. But it is frustrating that it's not available. And I've heard a lot of drama in the background too that I'm not going to talk about right now that could be causing the delays. But overall, I just think we all just want a solid product. That's it. And if it's just another option, it doesn't hurt. But I'm not convinced that it's going to be like, oh, everybody's switching over to Rev 2. That was the same thing that happened when that other software came out. What is it called? Dang, I just forgot what it was called. You guys remember the other one that everybody was saying was going to be a reflex killer? What was it called? Oh, man. Let's see. Oh, if you're on Patreon, you can message me directly, like through Patreon. Or if you join the Discord, I have like the pinned note on how to join the Discord. You can do that like in the settings page or whatever of Patreon. And then you can DM me on there. But usually, if you just joined, I'll be sending you a welcome message too, and then you can respond to that. Dude, what is that other port injection controller? Oh, that's killing me. I was thinking about it earlier, and now I can't remember it. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Oh, you just joined. I mean, I guess the main thing we were talking about was Mike Body. He crashed his G80. So if you guys haven't seen that, you can check out his page, and he's got like a little bit of a breakdown. But of course, it led to us just talking about why does this keep happening? Like, why are so many people crashing lately? And not just like, oopsie, I got into a fender bender, but literally like totaling their cars. Just trying to understand like what's going on, because it's really weird that this is happening so much. But in my opinion, I'm not racing anymore this year. I'm telling most people just chill. No, not AIC. Oh man. This one's killing me because I was just talking to somebody about it, just thinking about it, and then I forgot. And it was popular for like 3 months because Sammy was tuning a bunch of cars with it, and then people stopped talking about it. I'm sure people are still using it, but it's like it just wasn't in the conversation anymore. Ah, man. No, I wasn't saying it was a fueling issue, but I guess there's just a lot more questions than answers. We don't know what caused the car to keep running off the track. So it was kind of like, what could be the issue? That's all. We were just kind of speculating, because especially if it's like the throttle felt like it was stuck open, then in theory it could have been something like the port injection didn't stop spraying, and so the car kept trying to make more power, and kind of like the engine was running away. So, it just didn't really make sense that the throttle is stuck open in a car with like an electronic throttle body. So it seems like it was probably something else. And see, these guys don't really post their build specs and stuff when they post their car. So even like I'm scrolling through posts, because I know Dre was running it. I think Merrick was running it like earlier this year. They all had switched from motive reflex. Hold on, I almost got it. Max ECU. That's what it was called. Do you guys not remember that? Max ECU. And basically all the one stock guys were running it like back in the spring earlier this year. I mean, I'm assuming they were still running it, but we stopped talking about it. It was like a huge conversation, and everybody was like, "Oh, is this better than motive reflex?" Because 4 people are using it that are really popular on Instagram or whatever, and it's like, no, it does the same thing. So, yeah, I don't know. For something like that, I think it's very hard to provide something now that would make everybody switch. Like, what are we missing? What do you think our platform is missing to make the car either make more power or be like more fun to drive, more convenient? We've got flex fuel, we've got integrated port injection, boost control, low pressure fuel pump control, all that stuff with the motive reflex. The only thing I can imagine that people would enjoy more is not needing a reflex to have that capability, like tuning it directly to the DME. But that's not a new product. That would be like a new feature in our tuning software. So if you still have to buy another box to like add this capability, then how does one box set itself apart in something that you care about? I don't know. Yeah, Motec, that's different though, man. Motec is its own beast for sure. And I think so. The other aspect is some people are looking at swaps. There's a couple guys in Europe and stuff that have done B58 swaps. So they've got some standalone controllers or standalone DMEs, basically. I shouldn't say a controller, but like a full DME engine management solution to make the B58 work. But yeah, that's a different beast. I don't think people want to do that either. You want to be able to just flash your car just like you did with an off the shelf map, but turn on port injection and control flex fuel and all of that stuff, which MHD is working on, right? But you still need a reflex to support it. But the goal, I think, with MHD, which hopefully I'll be able to test on the X7 at some point, is flashing everything through the OBD port and not needing to flash 2 separate things. Let me see. Did he post that? I don't know that he posted the engine management he's using. Yeah, it just says his control system. SCS Delta. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people talk about them. I think they've had B58 management for a while. This is what the website looks like. And I think the big thing for them is that it retained DI, because a lot of people had standalones, but you had to disable DI and switch to port injection. And they were the first, if not one of the first, that maintained direct injection control, I believe. So yeah, I don't think he's on Motec, unless he switched at some point. Yeah, man. I don't know. This is just, it's a weird time to be in right now. Anyway, gosh, we've been on here for 2 hours. How does this keep happening? Appreciate it, man. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you guys supporting too. Hopefully we'll have more coming in 2025. Let's see. Fuel Tech is slowly supporting S58 and 8 HP transmission control. I think we're going to see that. That is one thing I think we're going to see more of, is tuning options for the transmission, because XHP has had a monopoly on the market for a long time, but the ZF 8-speed is not unique to our cars, right? Like, it's pretty much the most popular automatic transmission for like these enthusiasts and performance vehicles. So now even Audi's using it, and all these other companies that tried to make their own transmission and then they're switching to ZF trans. It's going to be pretty much the most popular trans out there. So it would make sense, especially now with built options that support 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 horsepower. There should be tuners out there and different tuning companies trying to throw their hat in the mix and add some capability. So I think that will be happening. I've heard some of the beta testing and stuff that's happening right now. I just don't know when it's going to like really come to fruition, but there's definitely interest there. Let's see, what's my opinion on the aftermarket intakes? I mean, they're cool. It increases spool and stuff like that, makes the car feel a little more peppy. I don't think it's a limitation for most people. Like, people have made over 600 wheel horsepower with the stock intake. But the most important thing for me is if you do upgrade your intake, you still use an enclosed box. So that's why MST style is really popular, because you can fit a really big filter in there, but it still pulls cold air from the grill. It's not pulling in hot air from the engine bay. But yeah, I mean, I've tried a couple different intakes, and I don't think any of them were game changers. It just helps spool a little more quickly, I should say. Ooh, I'm hungry. My stomach's rumbling. Let's see. I know I missed a bunch of questions up here. Sorry, guys. Let's see. What do I think of the F63 TU4? There's a TU4 or TU3. I can't remember, but I think it's better. That was actually the best one, I guess. I don't know that it's bulletproof or super reliable or anything. I still think rods are the weak link. At least my understanding, again, I've never had one, but from what I've seen, people are bending rods on like stock turbo tunes. So those cars make a lot of power and are very fast, but need to be built before they're pushed, which makes it a lot less entertaining to me, because I don't want to spend that kind of money to tune my car and have a little bit more fun. But if you can enjoy it in stock form, it's probably generally pretty good. Just, it has two of everything, so more stuff can go wrong. I'm just not sure that there's been a trend of it actually going wrong. The early ones for sure, like the N63, those were the bigger issues with, um, valve leaks and burning oil and needing turbos replaced and stuff like that. Those cars I would never touch. Let's see, any particular reason why most street cars use PTE versus drag cars? I don't think that's true, man. At least in the spaces I've been in, most drag cars use precision. So I'm not sure which car you're referring to as using Garrett. I think for a street vehicle, I prefer Garrett just because it's water cooled. And especially on cars like ours that have built-in turbo timers, it helps with the turbo's reliability and longevity. It makes it last longer because the coolant will keep pumping through it to cool it down after you shut down the car. With a precision turbo, they, like anything that you see guys running like the 6870s and stuff, it deletes the coolant lines. It doesn't have coolant going through it. So one, the oil has to do twice the work. It has to cool off the turbo and lubricate the turbo. And also you lose that turbo timer functionality. So if you've been beaten on your car, you really need to make sure like you set and let it have like a cool down period, because the car isn't going to do it for you. So that's why I like Garrett's. That's why I like EFRs, because they're designed to be water cooled. But precision seem to be like just really robust. Like you can push them way out of their efficiency range, make a lot of boost, and they make a lot of power. So that's why, at least in our world, pretty much all the fastest cars use precisions except for, what is it? I think P-Tuned is like sponsored by Garrett. So all of their cars use Garrett. And I don't know, Titan maybe? I can't think of who else uses other turbos. Or somebody uses like Zona Rotor or something, but yeah, pretty much all of the fastest cars use precision now. And whenever precision comes out with a bigger turbo, they just move to the bigger one. So everybody was using 6870s, and then they started moving to 7275s, and yeah. For the intakes, yeah. Intakes are not a value proposition at all. There's nothing about an intake that gives you the performance for the cost. Again, in my opinion, in my testing, that's been my experience. It definitely doesn't hurt. And especially like on the Flomax, when I was pushing the car a little bit more, we started pushing higher horsepower levels. I put the intake on and wastegate duty cycle dropped. So we were able to push it further. And if you're in that scenario, then yeah, it can like raise the limit for how hard you can push the turbo. But for most people that just want a 600 wheel horsepower car, the stock intake tends to work fine. But I think Dynamic AutoWork doesn't honor their warranty if you are using the stock intake, or if they find out that you're using the stock intake. So I guess keep that in mind too. I mean, depending on the turbo company, they may recommend or require an aftermarket intake. But I had the stock intake on it for a while before I upgraded. The opinion on the new running light design. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think modern BMWs are going to reflect what we're used to. Like they started abandoning it with our cars, right? Because we don't have halos, or I'm saying our cars. I don't know if you have an F series or G series, but on F series, they got like the half halos, like the half moons. And then on the G series cars, it's like barely even that. So I think personally, it might be a little selfish, but I think some of it is when I look at halos, I don't associate it with BMWs anymore. I associate it with like riced out Hondas and stuff, because everybody was buying aftermarket headlights with halos. And so it's like, do they hang up on that and say this is a BMW design detail, or do they blaze like a new trail and create a new design? And what it seems like they're doing is like the super slim headlights, like almost nothing there, right? So if you look at the new X7, the new 7 Series and stuff like that, they've just got like these little thin slits, and then it has like a little thin line or like detail or whatever. And they're approaching that realm of like just a light bar, almost like a Cybertruck or something. But that's what everything's moving to: headlights and taillights. Everybody's moving to like these little thin light details. So I don't know if that answers your question. I guess I should say, from my opinion, I'm not necessarily a fan, but I think I understand it. And I don't think that halos would look great on modern cars. I like the design that kind of is reminiscent of the halos, but just four circles, like, it doesn't fit the body style. It doesn't fit the goal of making it look modern and advanced. Like, they want it to look like it's a transformer. They don't want it to look like a car from 2005. So yeah, exactly. It's something, it's not played. Like, I don't want to put it in that realm, but it just, I don't know. It doesn't scream BMW to me anymore. Like, if I see it behind me, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. It could be a Challenger. It could be, like you said, a Jeep. It could be a Volkswagen or something. Like, you don't know. So at one point, it was kind of like secured to that. And I think Audi did the same thing, because they used to have the little dot lights, right, where you could see the individual LEDs, and it created the DRLs. And then when everybody started copying that, they moved to like the light bars and like the designs and stuff in their lights. So everybody's just trying to move ahead and create their own design language instead of sticking to what they've been doing. But yeah, I at least think like the half halos are better looking than just like two little dashes or whatever it is now. Um, but I understand it. Yeah, exactly. They're trying to set a trend. They want to create a style, not follow what's been done. But yeah, I'm surprised they even considered that an LCI to begin with, because the changes are so small nowadays. It's like, is that it? How do you even tell the difference? Let's see. You have a 2018 X3. Will my brake adapters work? Unfortunately, no. I don't have brake adapters for anything other than F Series 1, 2, 3, and 4 Series vehicles. So F20, F22, F30, F32, those cars. And the reason is because it's designed for F Series brakes. It's designed for F80 and F82 brakes. So if your car doesn't come with those same calipers, it won't work, unfortunately. But I have heard some people bought my adapters and put them on E90s, because people are retrofitting F80 calipers on E90s. And I found that out after the fact. So apparently, if you have like an E90 or E92, you can make it work with certain rotors. But it's designed to work with F Series calipers. So if your car doesn't come with F Series calipers and you're not trying to fit, and I say F Series, I should be specific, F80 M3 calipers. If you're not trying to make that work, then it's not designed for your application. I'm thinking MPPSK or MHD Stage 1. I'm an MHD Stage 1 guy. The MPPSK is just overpriced, man. And again, that's just my personal opinion. The exhaust is very nice, but there are, for lack of better words, there are better value exhausts out there. I think the most critical thing about the M Performance or MPPSK exhaust is that it's either a straight pipe or not, right? So it has valves on both sides that properly bypass the muffler and turn it into a straight pipe when the valves are open. But it's heavy, it's expensive. The tune is super slow. Like, compared to an actual Stage 1 tune, you're getting maybe half the power bump. I know a lot of people enjoyed it when it was the only option, but in modern days, I wouldn't do it personally. So just my opinion. And I know, like, you probably like the exhaust like a lot of us. We like the idea of having an exhaust with real flaps that can be really loud or really quiet. But for the price, there's so many other options, man. You could probably get like an Acropovic exhaust or something for that same price. So personal opinion, I wouldn't get MPPSK. Let's see. So I have an E30 downpipe and tune 2020 M340i. What would you say is the next step to make my car more fun to drive? So personally, I would start doing suspension mods and tires. If you enjoy handling and stuff like that, which I do, and you want to use it more than just a straight line car. So, you can get some lowering springs, you can get some sway bars. For me, that made the biggest difference. I think your car already comes with an LSD, so you don't need that necessarily, but just making the car get around turns quicker, I think is a lot of fun. So I think the biggest difference that I made on my car was the sway bars, and it just made it feel so much more planted, but it's a lot of work to install them. Lowering springs don't make the same difference, but they're a lot easier to install and cheaper. So kind of just depends on your goals. Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about. The LCI, like I think the term LCI has gotten watered down, not because it's not a change, but because the changes are so small, and I guess companies can't invest on these small updates anymore. Like maybe they're not making as much money on the LCI models, but that used to be like a big difference. And if you stood them side by side, you can tell the difference. Even on the 4 series or the 3 series from F30 and F32, you got new headlights, you got new taillights, you got a new iDrive, you got new cluster options, you got a new engine, you got like significant changes, right? Whereas on these new cars, everything's the same, it's just slightly tweaked. Or even like most of it's in the interior, but if you look at the exterior, you can't really tell the difference. Um, I think G20 is noticeable, but I probably prefer the pre LCI G series like bumpers and stuff. I like the big open grills and stuff at the bottom, like big open intakes. But we talked about that too. It's like everything is moving to a design where you've got like small slits and stuff to kind of manage air for your brakes and everything instead of like these big openings because it's probably more aerodynamic and stuff. But not my personal preference. Um, and then yeah, like slightly new headlights or something. It's not really what I'm a fan of. And there's not really big jumps in technology, right? Because it used to move from like HIDs to LEDs or from like like regular taillights to like LED taillights and stuff. Now it's really there's nothing there. I mean, lasers, as cool as they aren't a big technological advancement, especially the way BMW uses them. So what would they do? Like, I guess I feel like I can't judge them too much because I don't know what they should do. I'm not in that position right now, but I do feel like it's not as exciting as it used to be. But yeah, we'll see. All right. Gosh, we've been on here for a while. I probably got another 5 minutes. Oh, thank you guys again for joining. I really do appreciate the support. I know we got off topic. We originally started talking about all these accidents and stuff we're experiencing, and then just kind of got into the normal stuff. If you guys do need help in the future, you can reach out to me on Instagram. That's probably the easiest way to try to get a hold of me. I struggle with everything else, but if you really need help, join the Patreon, and you can message me on there as well. And we have a Discord server. We have a group chat where we all talk about our builds, and you can message me, send me pictures, questions. I'll review logs, whatever you need help with. So the Patreon is listed in the video description of pretty much all my videos if you guys want to join. Let's see. Any plans on doing spool clutch pack install? Yeah, we talked about that earlier. Highly not likely. Not because I don't want it or don't like it, but it's something that is extremely challenging, and I'm not sure I would take that on myself. What I would like to do probably is go to a shop that can do it, like go to Pure or to ATS or Spool and record the process. Let them do it, but document the process and have them do like a DIY. That I could entertain. But me myself doing it, Like, I need a car that I can throw away to try something like that because that just seems very, uh, specific. Like I was saying earlier, I can unbolt and bolt on parts, and if I know how it came together, I can probably take it apart and put it back together. But little things like checking clearances, making sure things are aligned right, and all that stuff, using specific special tools for certain jobs that I don't have and I'm not aware of, that makes me nervous to make those kinds of changes. So we'll see. See, I have to take my this is a real concern, so don't feel weird asking. I have to take my tuned M340i in for a recall, which is a software update. Do you think it'll run after the update? So I think it depends because somebody just posted that they got a recall update done on their car, and then they went and bought like this bench unlock tool and all this stuff and went to get it unlocked. And when they hooked it up, it said it was already unlocked. So the recall didn't lock it. So it really depends. I think a lot of recalls don't flash the DME. Some of them flash other modules. And so in that case, it shouldn't lock the DME, but it really just depends. If it's a DME update, then most likely, yes, it will lock it. But you might want to ask more information about what the recall is for before bringing it in. And that'll make sure that you don't, get yourself caught in a situation that would suck. But yeah, very real concern. I've thought about that with the X7 too, because I need to disable the remote updates and stuff before I tune it so I don't get stuck out there. Let's see. How do you join the Discord? Here, I'll let me just post the link in the chat. I appreciate you guys that are interested in it. So this is the Patreon link. And if you guys join the Patreon, it has a pinned message at the top that tells you how to join the Discord, and it'll link it to your Patreon. So if you have Patreon access, you can get into the Discord chat. You just go, I think it's like the settings page or whatever. What is it called? Yeah, you go over to settings and then apps. That's what it's called. So you go to settings and then the apps page, and it shows the apps that are connected. And then you click on Discord, and it allows you to join the Discord chat. So sorry I didn't explain that better earlier. I haven't had to do it in a while. But if you look at the pinned message on Patreon, it tells you how to join. The link should be pinned in this chat. It's patreon.com/ let me see, /C/current417. That's the Patreon page. Let's see. Do I think the upcoming change in government administration will have any effect on aftermarket parts availability? I don't think so. Yeah, no problem, man. It's so simple, and I still had to read it to even say it, so don't feel bad. Um, yeah, I don't think it'll have a big change on aftermarket parts availability specifically because the EPA is going to be the EPA. So Trump is not going to be able to tell the EPA stop worrying about emissions. You know what I mean? The only thing I think I've seen people mention is that it could help bolster the aftermarket parts industry because it's implied that they'll put more tariffs on parts coming in from other countries. But I don't think that's going to stop importing parts. It's just going to make them more expensive, which wouldn't necessarily help us. So that's kind of the question. Is it going to make us more motivated to buy American parts and like support companies that are in America, built in America, and manufacturing in America? Or is it just going to make everything more expensive and make it harder to modify your car? Kind of hard to say, really. But I mean, there are already tariffs on a lot of companies' parts, anyways. So is it just going to make it worse? I don't know. We'll have to see. personal opinion, like I don't focus on government stuff. I focus on our community and what we can do for each other, trying to provide for each other, because that's, I think, the easiest way for us to take control of it. And the government, it's going to be the government. They're not really our friends. Nashville got rid of emissions testing in 2022. Oh, nice. Is it Nashville or like the whole state of Texas? Because I know Ohio's weird. There are certain counties or cities in Ohio that do emissions testing, but overall, Ohio doesn't have emissions testing. So yeah, that's not something I've ever had to worry about. It is something that is like important to me. If I do have to move somewhere, like I pay attention to that because I want to make sure that I don't run into an issue with, a car that has a turbo hanging out of the hood, that could be a problem. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the other thing a lot of people don't focus on is your local elections, and your local public officials for your city and your state are going to be more critical in making those decisions, right? A president and like overall national regulatory bodies are not going to be as influential as your regional and local representatives. So that's probably what we should all be focusing on more if we want to make a difference there. But again, I don't feel like any of those people are our friends, so I don't expect too much. Let's see, Chevron deference was defeated. EPA and other agencies can't make up their own rules without Congress anymore. So Trump can actually control them unless Congress stops it. I hear you. Like, I understand what the intent is, but I would not hang up your hat on that. We've been let down a lot in the past with stuff like that. There are a lot of promises being made by a lot of people that have good intentions, but nobody can make a change on their own. And even if they want to make a change, that doesn't necessarily mean they will, that they'll prioritize it. Like, again, I get the idea. It would be awesome if I was president. I would want to make a difference too. But is that really your top priority? Like, are you worried about, some people that want to be able to run a catless downpipe over everything else that you're going to find out on your first day, and then you realize like stuff is just in shambles? I don't know. You tell me. I think the price tag on CSF B58 intake manifold is worth it, or do you think something like Bimmer Network will perform just as well? I don't know about the race manifold. I think that one has a lot of value, but it's also very, very expensive. But most of the basic, like standard design, if you will, manifolds seem to perform the same, or at least similarly. There's nothing that I've seen that pushes one way over the other. But like the bigger quote unquote race manifolds like EOS, CSF has one, RK AutoWorks has one. Those seem to have like a performance benefit. It's just hard to say if spending twice as much money is worth it. Let's see, Nicholas, if you're already in there, I'll message you on there. After I get on here, I'm gonna check in and I'll be able to message you and show you how to get to it. But if you go to the Patreon on the internet, like you probably need to go to Chrome, like your internet browser, and log in, and then go to the settings page, and then there should be a tab that says apps, and then that's how you click over to the Discord. I don't know if you can do it on the phone app or not. So try doing it from like Chrome. In Canada, you only need to pass safety once, and then if you pass, you can mod, and they don't care about emissions. So yeah, that's similar to like anywhere. So here in Ohio, they make sure the VINs match, basically make sure the car isn't stolen, and then they give you your registration. That's pretty much it. I think when I lived in Kentucky, they make sure your headlights and your wipers work, and then they give you your registration. So there's a lot of places that don't check in or care. Like, as long as they make sure you bought the car legally and you pay your taxes, they don't care. And those are the places that I'm comfortable in. Those are the places I've lived in. But I know other places, it's like every year, every 2 years, they gotta do checks and stuff. And I mean, like I've driven to some of these places, like New Jersey. I mean, the cars look rougher, but I think the city is rougher on cars, right? Like they've got bad roads, really bad conditions, a lot of stuff that just tears your car up, and they don't want cars driving around with like unsafe conditions. I think it's more than emissions, right? Like they're making sure that you're not driving a ticking time bomb that's going to fall apart on the highway, and the road will do that to you. So, yeah, meanwhile, you're in Cali. I mean, it's different over there. I do not get it at all because there's so many people, like, there's such a big car culture in California, despite all of that EPA stuff. I don't get it, but more power to you guys that make it work for sure. Yes, sir. And that's what I'm talking about, right? Like, no matter who's in power, no matter who's in office, no matter what they're saying they're going to do, I'm going to do what I want. That's genuinely like how I feel about anything. If they make it slightly more difficult or slightly easier, whatever, there's always a way, at least in my experience, to get what I want with what I want. So that's what I focus on. I just keep my head down, work on what I want, try to support each other. You know what I mean? It doesn't stop it. It doesn't stop anything over here. All right. We were on a marathon, guys. So I appreciate everybody joining. I hate to cut this short. I know we're having a good conversation. Like I said, I'm going to try to do this more often, hopefully at least once a month in the future. And I'll try to get that streaming software going so we can actually like look at videos and talk about stuff that's going on. But just wanted to hop on today and talk for a little bit with all the latest news and stuff, body crashing and people having issues with their cars and stuff. So I figured we'd start off with that. But it's good talking about, everybody's builds and stuff. So again, join the Patreon if you guys want to support. Otherwise, feel free to reach out on my social media. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. And I will see you guys on the next one.